Hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge, back once again with another episode of my ongoing weekly segment, Valiant Till the Last, in which I read every single Valiant Deluxe Edition one by one for the first time. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at Unity. So this is a series, so it was an ongoing series, it went on for I think 25 or so issues. Unity Deluxe Edition 1, standard layout, for the early era Valiant comics with this image as the main image. It says Deluxe Edition 1, unfortunately there was never a Deluxe Edition 2, which is something we'll talk about later. Standardized spine, so it looks nice on your shelf with just purple colouring, the usual slight diagonal detailing, and then again Creators and Deluxe Edition number 1 there. And then the standard back text image blurb. If we pop this open, we've got the inside French flap here. And we have the rear French flap with the Creators there. In terms of end leaves, we have got bright orange, which I think is the very first time we've ever had like a bright orange end leaf. It's odd, to be honest, this kind of reminds me of Livewire, because it kind of suits the colour of her uniform and so on. But hey, there we are, Livewire is kind of the leader of the Unity group anyway. And so here's the comic, let's dive into it. There we have it, Unity Book 1. Let's have a look at the contents. This collects 14 issues, give or take. So the first arc is To Kill a King, issues 1 to 4. Then there's a shorter arc. Ooh, you know what? Let's zoom in. To Kill a King is issues 1 to 4. The shorter arc is Trapped by Webnet. And then we have the Armor Hunters arc, which is issues 8, 9, 10, and 11. We then have the final arc, which is United, which is Unity issue 0, Unity issue 12, Harbinger Faith, and Unity 13 to 14. Just in terms of this, just to clarify, To Kill a King was a series of 4 issues that we saw in Exo Manowar Deluxe Edition 2, I believe. Trapped by Webnet, we have not seen before. The 4 issues here were connected in the Deluxe Edition that we looked at last week, which was the Armor Hunter Deluxe Edition. And these are all new to us, although Harbinger Faith is, as I recall, part of the Faith series and actually collected, I think, in the Faith Deluxe Edition 1. Okay, alright. Standard build quality, really nice build quality, really glossy paper, standard formatting with the 4 covers there to indicate what issues are in this. So what is Unity? Unity is kind of like the Avengers in the Valiant universe, although it is much, much smaller. Whilst at one point there were like 30 or 40 members of the Avengers, Unity has like 5 people. It has Ninjak, the Eternal Warrior, Livewire, and Arik, so Exo Manowar. Livewire is kind of the default leader, so I guess she's sort of in the Captain America role, I suppose. But to be honest, there's no real kind of clear mapping over to either the Justice League or to Avengers or anything like that. Unity is very much its own creation, very much its own characters and dynamic. It's a very small, intimate group of experts that know each other very well, who are all very formidable. There's no kind of comedy, banter, or anything like that. That's not the sort of story it is. Unity was brought together initially to fight Arik in Deluxe Edition 2 of Exo Manowar, but then subsequently is maintained partly as a home for Livewire and partly just as a sort of final resort against threats to which there is no other kind of alternative way of or alternative mechanism to dealing with it. So yeah, it's that's the basic premise. So here we are. So these first 4 issues are all in Exo Manowar Deluxe Edition 2. Then we have these 3 issues, Trapped by Webnet. This was a good story. It was a good 3-issue arc. I think the only thing I would say about this is that it reminded me slightly of the character of Kaizen Gamora from Wildstorm comics, specifically from the era of the Authority. But that's all I'll say. It's basically Unity going up against someone else and just generally being pretty cool. It's good dialogue, it's good art. The story is small scale yet interesting. The art, as you can see here, I mean, that's an exceptional cover right there. And this guy, Dr. Silk, is the guy who reminds me a little bit of Kaizen Gamora as a character. That said, it's not derivative at all. It was very, very original, very, very interesting. Has some great splash pages and stuff, and yeah, it's highly recommended. Definitely well worth a read. Not reading this isn't that big a deal because if you don't read this, then the next arc, which is in Armor Hunters, still makes complete sense. So that is not a problem. Yeah. So where are we here? Yeah. So that's the end of the Webnet arc. And then next we have Armor Hunters. So the 4 issues here, issue 8 till 11, which we've already seen, and we've already talked about. They're part of the Armor Hunter Deluxe Edition. One thing I will say is looking through this and kind of flicking into this a few days later and getting a chance to kind of read this in isolation without all the intervening Armor Hunters one-shots and extra manual issues and so on. This actually holds together remarkably well. It's a good companion piece to the Armor Hunters series if you're reading that by itself. But if you read these 4 issues, actually it does make kind of a coherent sense. Although I'll be honest, you do very much need to read the entire Armor Hunters event as well. The very first arc in this, To Kill a King, totally makes sense, even if you're not reading Exo Manowar at the time. Whereas the Armor Hunters one sort of makes sense, but actually you really need to read the overall Armor Hunters event to have any kind of understanding as to what's going on, to be honest. Yeah, so let's just skip through this. We saw all this we saw all this last week. And then we have this, The United. So The United is Unity issue 0, which should be read at the start of this. Then Unity issue 12, then Harbinger of Faith, and then Unity issues 13 and 14. Now, this is a arc that is kind of referenced in Faith, in that Faith references are mentioned joining Unity and then leaving Unity because it doesn't work out. And what you do here is you get a chance to see why it doesn't work out and sort of the dynamic there. So this is issue 0, which is a really interesting issue, kind of a flashback, sort of, or a retrospective, sort of set in World War II and talking about the original Unity team. And then you get into the subsequent Unity issues. So issue 12, which is really interesting. You have Faith joining, and then you have the Harbinger of Faith one-shot as well. So Harbinger of Faith is a one-shot, was also collected in the Faith Deluxe Edition, Volume 1. It's an interesting story, and in this sense it kind of intersects with her in the Unity recruitment. And then you've got Unity issues 13 and 14. So, yeah, let's have a look at this. As you can see, really consistent artwork, really consistent writing, really consistent characterization. It was a really enjoyable read, and I liked it a lot. Interesting how this issue uses kind of the Todd McFarlane Spawn Talking Heads commentary throughout to kind of frame the narrative, which actually works incredibly well. Yeah. And that, I think, takes us, to the end of issue 14. So, with that said, we then have a series of gallery images, and this is the usual kind of DVD-style extras and commentary. Useful stuff, really interesting, all pretty standard, great for the fans. I find it really interesting to read that, especially the interview about the new antagonist, the United, and what they do and so on. And yeah, there we have it. Unity by Matt Kint. Oh, I didn't show the covers, did I? Here we are, we have the silver blocking here, which is nice. You see that there. And then we have the spine. So Valiant Unity by Matt Kint and various other creatives. And Deluxe Edition 1. And there's the back. Nice and clean. Okay, right, so that was the first 14 issues of Unity. Quite a lot of it was double dipped with previous deluxe editions, but actually it works quite well like this, so I've got no particular issue with that. I'm not going to redact or reduce the hardcover or get that rebound to have some issues taken out. There's no need to do that. It works well as itself. I quite enjoyed it. That was all good. So what is next? Next week, we're not going to be looking at a deluxe edition because what I want to do is finish Unity. And Unity's issues 15 to 25 actually are not collected as a deluxe edition hardcover. So what I'm going to do is read them as single issues or as trades, and then I'll have a look at those. So that's issues 15 to 25, and I'll see where we are. So if you're reading along with me, That's what we're going to do next week. Unity issues 15 to 25, just to finish up the series, before we dive back into the Exo Man or Deluxe editions and see where we've got to. So far, this feels like exactly the right place to be reading this. It doesn't hint at anything that happens in Exo Man or after Armor Hunters, and it's just kind of useful context for the overall story. So this seems to be working well as to what my gut instinct was to read this. So yeah, until next time, guys, stay classy.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at I am Thomas Judge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.